A4DG is from Tanzania. Selemani Makwita. We have Willard Freedom Kaura. Is a technical program officer at Action 8. If I mention the name, can I hear if you are present in the room? Selemani Makwita, are you in?
Yeah, here, come on.
Okay, good. Willard Freedom Kaura. Thank you so much. Lebogang Maboso. He's a chairperson of ECOSOC Credential Committee from Botswana, and we have Bukumusa Moyo, advocacy officer, We Effect Zimbabwe. And our last speaker will be Narishebo Sinyama, Youth for Parliament Movement, Zambia. Are you in, Sinyama?
Yeah. Yes, I'm in.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have a good number for engagement. So thank you so much, everyone who have joined. So the first question will go for the to Mr. Makwita. As Mr. Makwita is a youth reflection and the question to Mr. Makwita will be looking on the youth reflections and response on the the question will go to Mr. Makwita, who is the executive director of A4DG, and we will be looking on youth reflections and response on the SADC principles and guidelines for democratic election. But what we want to know from Mr. Makwita, because he has a background on social activism and leadership, we need to know how youth participation and involvement in the civil we need to know how does these principles, SADC principles and guidelines for democracy are reflected in youth perspective to make sure that the young people that have the space to participate in when it comes to democratic election. You are most welcome, Mr. Makwita.
Thank you, Kamala. Thank you very much. As I introduced you introduced me, my name is Selemani Abdul Makwita. I'm the director of Action for Democratic Governance. Thank you for the question, and to respond on that, I will start maybe to give a background of these SADC principles of democratic elections. SADC region, our bloc, I can say that, has made significant strides in the consolidation of the citizen participation in the decision-making processes and the consolidation of democratic practices and the institutions. The constitutions of all SADC member states enshrines the principles of equal opportunities and the full participation of citizens in the political processes. The Southern African countries that we call SADC, building up upon their common historical and cultural identity over centuries, agreed to encapsulate their commonality into a single vision, that of a shared future. So we have this vision, as we say, that we have a shared future. So in this context, in 1992, the Southern African countries meeting in Windhoek, the Republic of Namibia, signed a treaty in establishing the Southern African Development Community, SADC. And Article 4 of the treaty stipulates that human rights, democracy, and the rule of law are principles guiding the acts of its members. And Article 5 of the treaty outlines the objectives of SADC, which commits the member state to promote common political value systems and other shared values which are transmitted through institutions, which are democratic, legitimate, and effective. It is also commits member states to consolidate, defend, and maintain democracy, peace, security, and stability in the region. Not only that, the Protocol on Politics, Defense, and Security Cooperation provides that SADC shall promote the development of democratic institutions and the practices within the territories of the state parties and encourage the observance of universal human rights as provided for in the Charter and the Convention of the Organization of African Unity or African Union and the United Nations. In addition, the Strategic Indicative Plan for the organ SIPO as the implementation framework of the protocol emphasizes the need for democratic consolidation in the region. The development of the principles governing democratic elections aims at enhancing the transparency and the credibility of election and democratic governance, as well as ensuring the acceptance of election results by all contesting parties. And lastly, the guidelines are not only informed by the SADC legal and policy instrument, but also by major principles and guidelines emanating from the AU Declaration on the Principles Governing Democratic Election in Africa. And we see on that AU, they come up with a charter, we call it the African Charter on Democracy, Election, and Governance, the ACDEM. And my friend here, Bekumu Samoyo, he is Zimbabwean, but from Zambia. We are together on promoting this charter at that time, engaging with the African Union at Addis Ababa, trying to advocate on ratification and sign of member states of Africa to sign and ratify this document. Though it was very challenging, but we tried it. And the AU guidelines for African Union electoral observation and monitoring missions. So when you see this, you see it's a very nice words when you hear we have good frameworks, we have documents that you can say, wow, the SADC region have a good frameworks and maybe policies in terms of political processes, democracy, and electoral in general. But as a young people in this region or in Africa in general, we see some issues that when we reflect, we see some issues that we can say that when we try to live on what the region is facing on issues of governance, we see maybe this is like, I can say it like challenges or issues we want to improve. For example, there's the issue of domestication and ratification of regional agreements. There are some countries in SADC region, they didn't sign, maybe, for example, the African Charter for Democracy, Election, and Governance. And as young people, we see that it was like, in my language, you say it's it's like a medicine for the insufficient political process and a political and electoral process in our regions. That means, like, for example, this charter allow independent, or it's like independent candidates. But for example, in my country, you can't be an independent candidate. You should belong from a certain political parties. So you see, for not signing or ratifying some of the charters or principles, that means that you are given light in a half. It's like you're given light, but it's not a full light. It's like a halfway light. So as young people, we see this as a challenge. And then I say we need an efficient and strong legal framework. That means that we don't have an efficient and legal framework in our region. Somebody can ask me, what do you mean the efficient and strong legal frameworks? We conduct election. We know in election always there is a challenge. Maybe that people will not be satisfied with the results of the elections, and they want to challenge that results or want to appeal on the results. But where the maybe solution in our region that we can deal with that issues. And you know, some of the countries in our region, they don't allow even to challenge maybe presidential results. So as a young people, maybe we want to change the regime for our future. And And the good thing, the SADC maybe major value said a shared future, and we want to have a shared future. And from Tanzania to South Africa, in this region, we want to see a progress. So how will we see a progress if somebody maybe take a power in a way that we didn't elect him or elect her, and we want to challenge that issue? It is difficult for us to remove him or her in the power. So it will be very hard to have this shared future as a young people. And the third one, okay, also we have issue that, most of the challenges young people we face on issues of election is like issues of economic or financial muscles. It's very hard to compete with these big fishes election issues. For example, in my country, we have I can call it an act, or which guide for electoral financing. So what if we have a common guideline in the SADC region is that control election financing, that to make sure that there is a fair ground for young people also to participate in the election, for being elected, and not only being voters on these electoral processes in our region. Also, the issue of civic educations. I can say that in my country, most of the time, civil societies are engaged on bringing voters education during election. But what we want to see, like the provision of civic education all over the SADC region, because when you provide a voters education, it's like you try to teach people how to vote. But the good thing we want to do is to make sure that we train people, or we teach people why to vote. The why question is very important before we are starting maybe doing or dealing with the how questions. Also, there are these issues of political will and the framework compliance, compliance on the frameworks. Sometimes we sign this document. There's a country sign this document, but they don't comply with this. So you can see there is a thing we call it lack of political will. They sign, but they don't mean what they sign. It's like for us young people, we need to see the implementation, the execution of this international standard, because what we think is like these standards make a baseline in our local laws, local policies, local frameworks and institutions. When you say in SADC, we promote independent electoral committees, and some countries don't have independent electoral committee, what are we thinking that we want to maybe make changes in our region? So we need to comply with these international standards or international frameworks. If we sign, we need to comply and implement it. It's not like just to make people satisfied with that we sign it, but we don't implement it. And lastly, for me, I think young people, sometimes in our continent, we have some initiatives like we call it AFCTA, African Continental Free Trade Area. Politics is everything. Politics is economy. Politics is social. Politics is political also. What I mean is like we need to have synergy to synergize our initiatives. If we want to make sure that youth are very effective and they participate in electoral and the democratic process in our region, that means we need also to make sure that this initiative, like the AFCAFTA, are well implemented, because through this economic empowerment, young people will have financial muscles that will make sure them to participate in electoral processes, because most of the time we are lag behind as a voters because we don't have financial muscles sometimes to compete. I remember last week I met with one of our friends here in Erishebo, and we are discussing on the Youth for Parliament movement in Zambia. And one of the challenges, I think it was like sometimes it's very hard for young people to compete because of lack of finance capacities. So that means we need to synergize other economic empowerment initiatives in our continent or in our SADC region, and this will go hand in hand with these political initiatives. So in general, what I see is like when you read documents, it's a very nice document, well written, but this as an issue as a young people, I think on my side that we need to deal with, and what I reflect, what I see, like we need to improve on this issue that I mentioned before. So thank you, Kamala. I think I'm trying to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Makwita, and that was so much informative. So I think the big question is how we are ratifying, because from your explanation or from your point of view, we still have a challenge of domestication of some of the principles that we have agreed in the regional level. But again, in our countries, we remaining with I don't know, but in the world region, there is something like a new observation where you will have elected president and you have people's choice president. Eh? So people, most of the people, they were we voted for someone, but someone won. So you remain with a elected president and people's president, and that's it's like a new wave that is emerging in the region. But if you look at it, it's because of the challenges that you have mentioned and some of the solutions that you have made. Maybe sometime if we can comply, they can bring us in the position where we can have a free and fair election that can give the voice of the people a chance to emerge as as from the voters box. So now I would like, thank you so much. So now I would like to bring our brother Willard Freedom Kaura. Is a technical program officer from Action Aid Malawi. Mlibwanji.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Willard Freedom Kaula. I'm speaking to you from Lilongwe, Malawi, and thank you for giving me this space. I will turn off my video. Just wanted to make sure that you know that you're speaking to a person right sitting in on the other corner of the region. So yeah, as introduced, I'm coming from Malawi, working with Action Aid Malawi as a technical program officer, specifically looking at issues of governance and also youth programming, where I'm coordinating the Activista Youth Network in Malawi, but also the coordinator for the Global Platforms Malawi. These are two youth programs that Action Aid is implementing, just make sure that it's also enhancing young people's capacity to get involved in the governance issues. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a simple engagement with you. Maybe we would like to know the code SADC principles. Yeah. Do you see they have any contribution to create a huge youth participation in a political process at the regional level? Maybe from the experience you had from the Action Aid Malawi. I know Action Aid, you always engage with young people, and the global platform as you've been engaging with the people, and from the last experience from Malawi when you had a new party and a new president. Do you see like these SADC principles that are giving a chance for the young people to engage fully in the political process at the region? You're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and thank you, Mr. Suleiman Makwita, for setting up the ground, giving all that presentation that you made. Just make sure that it highlighted a lot of things. I think that will also build on what I want to say on this one. Thank you for what you mentioned about how young people don't have now the economic muscle to be able to participate in a lot of things that are happening. In talking about how the SADC principles and guidelines are providing an enabling ground for young people to be involved in the political spaces, in the democratic and governance issues that are happening. I think, first of all, it's very important to mention that as Africans, especially in the SADC region, I would not speak for the other regions, I'm not well conversant, but for those that are coming from the SADC region, we've seen that a large population of the people in the region are young people. Now, almost over 60% of the people that are within the region are being below the age of 35. And then when we talk about, say, issues of demographic dividend, where we look at what portion of the population is economically viable, is able to do something that is economically productive, and is able now to cater for itself. And we look at the age blanket of about 18 to around 40. And most of the young people that are within that group were expected to be economically active and then contribute more to what is happening. But most of these people in this group, now they are rampant with unemployment. They don't have things to do. Most of them don't have technical skills to be able to do their own things that they would do. Most of them do not have maybe permanent residence, and you can make the list. And then when the political parties and the politicians are coming in, they bring in promises that are more appetizing to the needs of this age group. So much so that they entice this group to vote for them to come into power, with hope that once they come into power, they will solve the issues that young people are facing. And I think my brother Makwita had alluded to a lot of those things. In this sense, by bringing in young people to participate in the political processes or the democratic processes, just make sure that they vote them into power. But later on, once they get into power, they don't come back to fulfill the promises that they made to the population. And also, often we've seen that once these political parties or the politicians have now come into power, actually, they don't even make an enabling ground. So apart from just giving these young people the promises that they made, they don't even create an enabling environment that would enable young people achieve their aspirations and dreams. And alone, that now makes young people to be more or less of a cosmetic in the democratic processes or in the political processes, the governance processes. So it's like young people have only been used to decorate what they're doing, or they have just been used as a ladder on which the politicians have used to reach to their aspirations. And then that frustrates a lot of young people. And then I think that's where now the gaps are supposed to be fulfilled by creation of some enabling legal frameworks. And one of the legal frameworks that are provided is a framework that I think today we're looking at, called the SADC Principles and Guidelines on Governing the Democratic Elections. Looking at that particular aspect already entails how the region is supposed to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections, but at the very same time, making sure that it is addressing the needs of the people. Because when you talk about human rights, that people have rights to that, a right to that, all those rights are supposed to be attached to a capability that people are supposed to actually experience and live those, and also they are able to enjoy to the fullest by the provision of the services that should enable those things to happen. But then, beyond just talking about the services that are supposed to be provided, we've seen that there is also need to level the ground so that there is possibility of everyone to participate and engage. Now, young people, being the kind of a volatile or the spontaneous group of the population as they are, require different levels of capacities that should be given. There is a need of quotas that should be provided. We talk about spaces that should be created for youth inclusion in the decision making, where we've said the state members in the region are supposed to encourage the adoption of policies that ensure youth representation in the decision-making bodies, both at the local, the national, as well as the regional levels. And in different scales, we've seen the utilization of structures that have been created. Taking an example of Malawi, where from the grassroots at the community level, there are the youth clubs that have been provided, and then we've seen the village development committees and the area development committees that escalate going up to the national level. These are the structures that are in place and that are supposed to be made function. And the guiding principles that SADC is developing is supposed to enable them be practical and utilized for young people to get to where they are. We've also seen issues to do with how now we want to make sure that young people are economically viable, because for you to engage in the political spaces or the democratic elections and the democratic spaces, there is need of resources. And most of the times, young people don't have that financial muscle so that they would be able to compete with those maybe that have been accumulating their wealth for years and years. So it becomes difficult for young people to compete. So there is also a need for an enabler that should give young people a capacity to compete with those that have developed their wealth over the years. So issues to do with the youth empowerment programs on the issues of the economic, the social, even on the political. Young people need to be given that kind of capacity, and that kind of capacity can be given if there are trainings that are provided. So the SADC principles and guidelines, beyond just talking about how elections are supposed to be conducted freely, they are fair, they are transparent, they're also supposed to provide that the politicians should not take advantage of people's vulnerability in terms of the poverties, that they should be exploited and manipulated so that they enable them come into power. Because what happens is when government or governments create programs or projects that are, I would say, tokenistic in nature, so that they're just there to look like they are compensating for those that voted them into power, it becomes an exploitation. And that kind of exploitation enables even the government itself to get away with issues of corruption, issues of unaccountability, simply because they are doing things to please those that voted them into power. And young people often fall into that trap because of the cumulative poverty that has been happening for over the years. So coming back to say, how do we ensure now issues to do with the civic participation and the political participation of young people in this kind of spaces, especially taking advantage of the availability of the principles and guidelines that the member states and SADC are putting in place, but also taking advantage of what has been stipulated as the guiding principle and the legal frameworks that are available. To me, I would point out maybe to two pertinent issues that I think really need to be taken into serious consideration. The first one is the youth political leadership development. I think there is need to, provide enough training and mentorship programs to develop the skills of young people and prepare them actually for, the active participation in the political processes, because now the voter apathy issues are becoming an issue. Most young people are frustrated; they don't want to vote anymore, and the more a larger group of people chooses not to participate, that's when we've seen that a very small, say, section of the population is voting for a leader. I would give you an example of Malawi that has a population of over now 20 million people, but then those that register to vote are around 4 million people. And those that actually go and vote are less than that. So you'd find like 3 million people. So it's like 3 million people are making a decision for a leader or a government that should lead 20 million people. And how these 3 million people make their decision most of the times is not a subject, I mean, an objective decision that is made. They're enticed by different other things that are provided, taking advantage of the people's poverty. And when we say people's poverty, young people being the largest population, the largest group in the population, they constitute the biggest part of the poverty that is in the region, and they are the ones that actually vote more. And if they vote more, they're not voting more because they want to vote for that particular candidate or for that people, for that group of people, but maybe it's just to know as an economic gain so that they receive something from the people. So the manipulation that is happening is actually delaying the participation of young people in the political and the governance spaces. In my conclusion to this, to answer your question, I would also talk about now how it is very important that the structures that are provided, structures for youth inclusion in decision making. My brother Makwita talked about issues of civic education, that people need to be, given enough information to understand the democratic processes, to understand their rights, but also to become the responsible citizens that are making the decisions that are for the betterment of our community. And the last issues to do with the youth-friendly policies that are supposed to be implemented. Countries like Malawi and many others have their national youth policies. But to what extent are we sticking to implement what the national youth policies have stipulated so that we develop young people and enable them to participate better in the political and the democratic processes as a civic right that young people have? I would stop it at that. Otherwise, I could speak, I think, for years and years. But let me leave it there and over to you. Thank you.
We thank you so much, Mr. Willard Freedom. The name Freedom keeps coming.
You can stay with Hulu is fine.
I remember the struggle for the liberation of SADC region.
Yes.
So if you hear freedom, some people here in Tanzania, those who were born during the freedom,
Yes.
during the independence, I mean.
Yes.
They were called others. They are called Jamhuri, and because they were born in the process, so they named them. They're free. And we have by the way, we have I think the leader of the opposition party here in Tanzania is called Freedom. Boy.
That's very interesting.
He's called Freeman. He was born in the during the
struggle.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your citing some of the issues. I think the problem that they're happening in Malawi is similar in other African countries, because even here we have good written documents, but when it comes to practical, you will sing Hallelujah before Christmas. It's been challenging. Yeah. So I see on the issue of economic muscles, because regardless of anything, even if we give the young people the chance to engage in the election as voters or as contestants, but the challenge, if you have no capacity, especially on the resources, financially, muscles to engage in the election, that's another challenge, because even the voters nowadays, if you just go around, they will be, we need something because you are going to eat, So it's no longer election is no longer like a way of getting people to work or to represent the people, but it seems election is a process of verifying some people to go and eat, because the people, they have already known, they have no longer having a hope in the process of people representing them in the decision-making bodies. So thank you so much. And now I think we'll have our third speaker, who is Lebogang Maboto, chairperson, and is a EU ECOSOC Credential Committee from Botswana. Are you there, bro? No, I mean.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right, Kamala. I'm there. Thank you so much to A4DG. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to believe we're all in the same region, so good afternoon. And thank you so much to the previous speakers, my brother Makwita and brother Willard rather, Freedom Kaula, who has just spoken. Brother Makwita, thank you for that detailed contextual background, and also to Willard for pointing out the key areas where especially young people are challenged pertaining to the topic that we are discussing today. So my name is Lebogang Kenneth Maboto. I am from Botswana, and as Kamala has rightly said, I am the current chairperson of the African Union ECOSOC, or the Economic, Cultural and Social Council. And I also wear another hat, which I believe is also quite key in our discussions today. I am also the Programs and Operations Director for the Southern African Council of Non-Governmental Organizations, which is more commonly known as the SADC Council of NGOs, or SADC CNGO. So for purposes of our discussions, I think I'll be drawing from both organizations. And briefly, for those who may not know what these entities are, I would say that for the ECOSOC, it's an advisory organ of the African Union, and it's informally referred to as the Non-State Actors Parliament. It was established under the third ordinary session of the AU Assembly in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, and it's constituted under Articles 5 and 22 of the AU Constitution. Its main function is to contribute through advice to the effective translation of AU objectives, the principles, the policies, and making those into concrete programs, as well as evaluating those programs. It also undertakes studies and makes recommendations. I'm not sure if you're getting me clearly. I forgot to switch off my video, so please permit me to do that at this moment.
Thank you so much for the I think it's a well needed introduction. Thank you so much. And so we need to like in the discussion, maybe if you can ponder on the role, like how does the NGO or civil societies promote or encourage on the domestication of the regional framework to create a democratic election and to make sure that young people are in the position to participate in the electoral process. You are most welcome.
Okay, thank you. So when the African Union moved from the Organization for African Unity and transitioned to the African Union, the key element there, or the key vision there, was to ensure that there's better people participation in the African Union processes, in making sure that all programming, all these treaties, all these protocols that are brought about have the voice of the people involved in them. And so this is where civil society comes in, because civil society is focused on ensuring that the citizen on the ground is heard and has participatory inclusion in all the processes that take place, that into all the policies that even affect such a citizen's daily life. The same goes for the Southern African Council of NGOs. It was constituted under Articles 5, 2B and 16A and 23 of the SADC Treaty. And likewise, its main mandate is to ensure people participation. So that is at the broad outset. And then when it now comes to young people, ensuring that people are participating at every level calls on all of us to ensure to make sure that there is mainstreaming of young people participation across the different thematic areas that an entity like or an institution like SADC or an institution like the African Union undertakes. So with the principles that we are looking at today, I believe that part of the challenge has been that the issue that is also highlighted in our topic for discussion today, where we are looking at challenges with domestication, and we are also looking at what opportunities there are within such protocols, within such instruments, and the challenge at SADC level is that while, like my previous speakers have mentioned, while a lot of these written documents, a lot of these policies and instruments are very good on paper, there hasn't been proper uptake, especially from the grassroots. And key among those reasons is the fact that at the most basic level, you find that people on the ground have no idea what the mandate of the African Union is, or the mandate of SADC itself. And as such, they have no idea about their own rights to participate in these processes. When it comes to young people and voter apathy among young people, it gets even worse, because not only are young people mostly prejudiced when it comes to inclusion at national level, but you find that now when we come to regional level, they having failed to have a proper appreciation of democratic processes, elections, and good governance processes at national level, they remain without adequate information to also appreciate the regional agenda. And for that reason, civil society works all the time to ensure that the voices, not only of the people in general, but specifically of women and youth, are heard. And when it comes to the young people, we are looking at ensuring that structures that we have at SADC level, such as the SADC Youth Forum, which happens to be a member of the SADC Council of NGOs, are also supported to ensure that young people participate well, even in the established SADC Youth Parliament, so that we work together even with the newly established SADC Parliament. It transitioned, rather, not newly established, newly transitioned from being the SADC Parliamentary Forum to being the SADC Parliament now. They work closely with the SADC Youth Parliament, and we ensure that young people are brought in to understanding how, firstly, at national level, they can be involved in the development processes of the different countries, and then having them to appreciate even the vision for the SADC region, and having them take part also in the different aspects or the different facets of regional integration, from the trade and economic side, from the political side, the peace and security, conflict mediation, conflict prevention, and the like, looking at also involvement in other areas of regional integration that are deemed to be of top priority by an institution like SADC. And lastly, let me just say, an institution like SADC, an institution like that we have here, that is driving this regional integration agenda, is an institution that is made up of the different member states, but it has no power to hold the member states accountable. So the work of holding member states accountable in ensuring that there's proper domestication of these instruments, and there's proper uptake and proper implementation when it comes to the signing, the ratification, and all of that, that mandate falls with the citizens in these member states.
Thank you so much, Lebong, for the for the for your explanation on the role of civil societies and the experience from the Africa Union, and how can we make sure that the domestication of the principles is very vital for the people to participate in democratic in the democratic process when it comes to our election. Yeah, Makuta, I saw your hand, but I think let's have the chance for all of the presenters, and then we'll come back for the people to, for those who have the questions and for those who have the contributions.
But Kamala, it's not a question. I was just want to tell you that Narishebo, she is in a place where she will move in that place that she access internet. So she want to be the next one before Bekumusa.
Okay. Okay. So thank you so much for the guidance. So now we'll go for Narishebo Sinyama. She represents the Youth for Parliament movement in Zambia, and I know, like, recently, how many years? Well, 3 years back, when Zambia had the election, and they got a new president, and there was actually a wave for the in the SADC that young people were behind the success movement to get a new president on the power. So Nerishebo, welcome so much on the platform, but also it's your chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll see on the like, how does the women participation in the electoral process at SADC region, consideration of the challenge that are facing young people in the region are the same as the challenge facing women, but at least in some of the countries like Tanzania, they have provided the constitutional for the special seats for the women in the parliament, maybe to make sure that they are part and parcel in the decision-making bodies. So you fetch example from Zambia. How does the women take a chance? But we have a lot of women in the decision-making bodies like parliament or the presidential appointees and others. So the space is yours. You are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Kamala, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak. My name is Narishebo Sinyama. I am the Youth for Parliament Movement Manager. I'm based in Zambia. I am a feminist, and I champion women's rights, but also I'm a young female politician in Zambia. Speaking on the issue of women's participation in the electoral system, for me, the electoral system starts from a political party, I would say. And we have a lot of women that participate in politics in my country. We have a lot of women that belong to different political parties. The only problem with the women that belong to political parties is that they do not hold strategic political positions. 95% of the women that you'd find in political parties in Zambia either belong to a choir group or a women's initiative of some sort, and those are the kind of roles that women play and do not actually play strategic roles in political parties, making it very hard for women to get to a space where they can make effective decisions for a country, even within their political party. I belong to a political party, and a lot of women that are part of my political party do not even hold the strategic positions to make even at ward level. Most of the women that belong to my political parties, all they do is sing. So those are some of the challenges that women have been placing themselves in, but also women, why women find themselves in such situations is because they do not want to. There's a lot of cultural barriers that prohibit women to stand against men in most instances. That is why a lot of them, even when they have the capacity and the ability to run for office, they would rather not do it because the head of the house and those kind of things that come up when it's women who are participating in politics. But also, a lot of women in political parties face a lot of patriarchy. There's a lot of patriarchy and there's a lot of sexism that goes on in political parties that hinder a lot of women to participate effectively in political parties. I myself resigned from a political party because I am a victim of sexism, you know. People want to engage me on basis of how wide my hips are, and they're asking me to say, oh, okay, if you want to get adopted, you need to do this, but a man is necessarily not going to be asked to say, oh, okay, if you need to be adopted in this position, to go to this room and you need to see this one and you need to sleep with that one. So a lot of women get discouraged to participate effectively in politics because of those same issues. Another thing I would want to talk about, you spoke about the nominated members of parliament. We have seen that even when it comes to nominated members of parliament in my country, the priority is all men. It's either one or two women or one woman that would be appointed by the president to take up that seat, you know, that nominated seat. So you'd even find that the members of parliament that we have in our Zambian parliament are less. We have less than 35 women in parliament here in Zambia, and it's a sorry sight because women here in my country are the majority. Women are the ones that actually wake up at 4 a.m. to go and cast their votes. But when it comes to decision making processes, their needs are not prioritized on basis of cultural norms, and when patriarchy also plays a role. So there are those systematic barriers that hinder women from participating effectively in the electoral process of our region. With that being said, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, leadership, Nerishebo, for your insights. So maybe before you leave, I think you'll be out of the internet. On the issue that you have explained, because you explained on the having a huge number of women and they are the voters, especially when it comes to election. But when you look into decision-making bodies, you find a few women from the cabinet, from the parliament, from the appointments, and every other seat. They have the same challenge like the one facing young people. So in your movement, we saw like you are in the Youth for Parliament movement in Zambia. Like what are the issues that you prioritize to make sure that women they are in the participation in the, or they likely to have some seats or participate in the leadership within the country or the community?
Thank you very much for the question. What Youth for Parliament does to ensure that there's an equal representation of young women and young men Parliament is to ensure that young women and young men themselves are informed of the electoral process, but also know what their role and know what their role playing once they get elected. Another strategic part that we have realized as Youth for Parliament is we have a social movement that is called Girls Gone Political. Girls Gone Political champions women's participation in politics. So with Girls Gone Political, it is purely a feminist social movement that plays a role of wanting to see women take up leadership in, but also even with political parties, because we have realized to say the systematic barriers that women face in wanting to participate in politics starts from within their political parties. So we have developed some mechanisms to ensure that young women are appointed even within their political parties and also get elected within their political parties to ensure that more women are free and comfortable to run for office within their political parties and at national level.
Okay, thank you so much for that explanation. And thank you so much for being with us in this platform. You will miss some of the questions from the speakers, but asante sana for the contribution you have made to this point. So I will go back to, we have left with one speaker, who is Dr. Musa Moyo, who is the Communication and Advocacy Officer at We Effect Zimbabwe. Yeah, I know Zimbabwe had election in some few days. Yeah, and we saw the intervention of SADC, but now we need to know, like, how does youth participate in democratic spaces at local level in a context of Zimbabwe, to make sure that they're in their position to engage in the democratic spaces. You most welcome, Bekumsa. Sorry.
Hi, comrade. I hope you can hear me. Am I clear?
Yeah. Very, very well.
Okay, perfect. My name is Musa Moyo. I'm happy, I'm really happy and proud to be part of this conversation today at regional level. You know, these are some of the platforms we always yearn for young people to have this conversation at regional level. As we saw during the liberation wars, that young people would collaborate, host each other across the region until we attained independence as Southern African countries, you know. And we know that this invitation coming from Tanzania also comes from a big ally of our freedoms in Southern Africa as part of the, non-aligned movements, which were led by the earlier leaders, Mwalimu and other comrades. So I'm very happy to be part of this conversation. Again, at the center of knowing most of the other panelists who have been invited here and their vibrant work and contribution into the democratic process. The comrade Nadisha, who just spoke now, Comrade Willard from Malawi, we have interacted when we were still at Action Aid. Comrade Makwita, we have been together in the trenches and terraces, having discussions around the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, in these different spaces. I'm so happy and I'm really humbled to be here. And then giving my presentation a small context to talk about, the youth participation. Just to read the topic as it is, youth participation in democratic spaces at local level, a context of Zimbabwe. Yeah, I would bring the context of Zimbabwe, but I would just like to clarify that currently I'm working in the region. I cover Malawi, I cover Zambia, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe also. So I have a little bit of an advantage of seeing things and processes that are happening in these 4 countries. Yeah, so looking at youth participation in governance in Zimbabwe, you know, it's an interesting phenomenon that Zimbabwe always tops the headlines every time we have elections. And our last elections were in 2018, which the ZANU-PF won. But from that, we decipher that young people in Zimbabwe constitute 67.7% of the total population. Their effective participation in electoral and governance processes remains a cornerstone to achieve sustainable inclusivity and enhanced civic engagements in politics. Young people are in the forefront, either for right reasons or wrong reasons, of which some of the points I'm going to allude to as I get into my presentation. The United Nations Development Programme of 2017, in its handbook for electoral management bodies, acknowledges that youth are the key change agents in a country, and the potential of young people's contribution to sustainable human development must not be ignored, which is an interesting case I think all the other comrades have alluded to. And when Nalisha was talking about women participation, you will discover that amongst the women that are participating, there's also the youth dividend that falls within that. But however, is the participation meaningful is the question that I'm trying to look into. However, in the Zimbabwean context, the space for youth participation continues to shrink by the day, given that elections since the post-2000 era have been characterized by violence, apathy, and youths find themselves in the middle of the mayhem. This has been the norm. Each year, year in, year out, Zimbabwe holds elections. There is so much violence that is unwarranted or that is warranted, but however, at the end of the day, it disturbs young people's participation in electoral process. That has been another dilemma that young people in Zimbabwe find themselves stuck in between the hard rock and the surface. Young people face an array of challenges that hinder them from participating in electoral processes at the parliamentary and local level. These include fear of violence, absence of administrative mechanisms to support participation, lack of information, lack of resources, legal barriers, and lack of political will from the ruling authorities, among other challenges. This has been the biggest norm. I think the comrade from Malawi alluded to also the challenge of young people, you know, not having enough resources or enough money, as we have seen that a lot of our elections in Africa have been monetized, if not militarized. It is important to note that the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Section 20, provides for an opportunity gap for youth participation in governance and electoral processes. The Constitution of Zimbabwe is very clear about who can participate in the democratization process of Zimbabwe. But however, we see some of these hindrances still emerging within our processes. We can go back to history and see that post-independence era saw a political commitment by the government to recognize the role of youth. This was in the form of establishment of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Recreation, which was led by the youngest minister in the first cabinet, Joyce Mjuru, who later became a vice president, who was 22 years old by then. So we could tell that post-independence immediately, Zimbabwe was a little bit open for young people to participate fully in these democratization processes and governance processes. And then we see the emergence of a lot of youth movements through students' movements, which raised the likes of Arthur Mtambara, who later became the deputy prime minister. But after that, we are seeing the banning and the closing down of student movements in Zimbabwe. If it's not banning, it is infiltration and also militarization, and also hard threats on any students who was participating in student activism during that time. Youth participation has been summarized by Flanagan and Levan in 2010. The scholars argue that youth participation is a right, assumes youth as competitive citizens, is facilitated by young leaders and adults as allies, aims to address the limitless issues faced by the youth. Then you discover that in Zimbabwe, most of the youth issues, as Nalishebo alluded to earlier, about women being in political parties but not in strategic positions. Young people in Zimbabwe are seen mudslinging, throwing stones, but you don't find them in key political positions in their political parties, which is a bigger hindrance. You find a political party having a youth representative or youth chair who is way above the age 45. We are having youth ministers that are way above the age of 40, when we know that at least the arguable age is 35. In other non-statutes by United Nations is up to 25. we have not been having young people enjoying these spaces. According to the 2015 youth situation analysis, which was carried out by the Ministry of Youth, Indigenization and Economic Empowerment in Zimbabwe, the report noted that Zimbabwe youth face challenges as that of other youth in the region. These include limited space for growth, high unemployment rates, poor quality education and limited educational opportunities, limited civic engagement opportunities, high HIV prevalence, teenage pregnancy, and early marriages. Some of these things are also linked to young people trying to find opportunities in the political space, which has been the other challenge that the comrades alluded to. So Zimbabwe is not spared. We have young people who end up using their bodies, or they are forced to use their bodies to assume political power or political relevance, which is a big challenge. In terms of electoral participation, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission showed that about 5,524,188 potential voters had registered to vote. From this percentage, 43.5% of the registered voters were in the age range of 18 to 34 years. From the above figures, it translates to 2,403,021 of youth appearing in the voters' roll, which is a very huge number. If young people were critical to vote for another young person, it would have changed the landscape. But however, those with money easily buy votes in Zimbabwe. That has been the norm in the past and even in the present, where young people are easily bought because there is a lot of poverty, unemployment, and all these other issues that are affecting young people in the region. Youth remain socially excluded group without the voice over their rights, access to education, participation in decision-making processes, and social misfits. The Zimbabwe Parliament currently comprises of 5 representatives of youth between the ages of 21 and 35 years, out of 260 parliamentarians, which is 1.92%, and this is a major concern that needs to be looked into. So as we have this conversation and discussion to look into the region and the regional dynamics and matrices that we can learn from, we need to take into consideration how our parliaments are actually, constituted, and who is who in that parliament and who is the majority. Because politically, if you combine the youth and the women, which amongst the women also you find some youth, if you combine these two constituencies, the two demographics can change the landscape of any country at any given day. But why don't youth vote for other youths? It's because what I alluded to earlier on, to say the economic dynamics and the desire or the need to enrich themselves. Young people find themselves in the wanting age. So the Constitution of Zimbabwe notes that every Zimbabwean citizen above the age of 18 has the right to vote and to be voted for, as enshrined in Section 67, Part 3 of the Constitution, and Section 67, Part 3B equivocally states that any Zimbabwean citizen who is over the age of 18 has the right to stand for public office if elected to hold such an office. So you find that the law is providing, but the environment and the terrain is not providing. So in conclusion, I will look into what we can consider for us to deal with these challenges, looking at Zimbabwe first, and then these can also be applicable in the other countries in the region, as we know that the SADC regions has got almost similar challenges. I know that young people in Zambia are having conversations around mixed member representation, which is something amazing, which is led by Piper, which is a political party's movement for Southern Africa. So I look forward to say we can advocate for youth quotas, which are very strict and clear and also enshrined in our constitutions. Party youth wings, we need democracy within the political party wings themselves. Because if you look at ZANU-PF or MDC or CCC in Zimbabwe and other opposition parties, you will see that it's still the top leadership, the top 10, the top 15 are always, positions are always held by older or elderly people who are not at the youth age or to understand youth issues. Political financing, we also need to have a very deliberate strategy as young people in the region or within our countries to look into political financing so that young people are not bought, and young people have got resources that they can use to stand for positions of power. Empowering young voters. There are a lot of new voters that are born and new voters that grow into the voter age. How do we actually harness those new voters and bring them into the limelight and make sure that politics, in a way, looks sexier and appealing for young people. I will also say we can advocate for removal of legal barriers, which are mostly like eligibility for political office. In some of our countries, for example, in Zimbabwe, they may demand that you need proof of residence, which may be on your own name. You need some affidavits, which may come from the legal fraternity and legal practitioners, which you need to pay for. And then also there are exorbitant monies that are paid for you to be listed in the ballot box. So those are some of the big challenges that we are facing in Zimbabwe, and that's the current state of young people's participation in democratic spaces in Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe's young people are eager to participate in national programs such as electoral processes, as shown by the increased number of youth candidates and youth voters in 2018 harmonized elections for local and parliamentary spaces. However, there is an urgent need to remove barriers to effective youth participation in governance processes. This can be through solution-oriented approaches, as highlighted in my presentation, and some of the issues that I alluded to, through some things that we can call the youth development models or youth representative models that we can come up with. Issues such as apathy, lack of resources, fear of violence, ignorance, legal barriers to youth participation, gaps in information can be eradicated through increased political will and a stakeholder approach to youth engagement. To me, I think this is what allays or what presents the current landscape of youth participation in democratic spaces at local level and giving the Zimbabwean context. And I know this context also applies in most of our SADC countries, as we know that most former British colonies will always carry similar Siamese challenges. Back to you, Mr. Moderator, and I end my presentation here. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comrade Kumusa Moyo, for the. I think there was a lot of round of applause for you. That was great, actually. I thought like we are ending the session with but the vibe is on, and that's a good thing of engaging young people in the discussion. So from Zimbabwe, I think that was a good experience to hear from you and the challenges. Yeah, I think that was very, very, very informative. Sometimes we yeah, in East Africa we have a long president who is still in power. Is from Uganda. When he got into power in 1980 something, among of the issue he mentioned when he was addressing the nation, he told the people that the problem of Africa is facing is overstaying of the leaders into power. But guess what? I was not yet born till today. He's still in the power. So you'll find in some of the countries it was after the colonialism, those who came to power, those ex-militaries, the veterans, the war veterans, they are occupying everything. When they get into power, they took a country that belongs to them. Because sometimes when you ask them, we fought for this country, and we will be there. So it's some of the challenge, but I think for this young generation that is coming, we can. Thank you so much. We can have a better way on how we can engage more young people to be responsible or to take to create the next Africa, they want. So now I would like to ask for those who have the questions. You can rise up. You can raise your hand, and we'll give you the chance to ask a question. Maybe if you can direct a question to a speaker, that will be good so that we can move smoothly. We are left with 5 minutes according to our timetable, and you're most welcome. If you have a question, please.
Kamala?
Yeah.
Yes, we have Tadala in the call, maybe. If she can have a time maybe to expound a little bit on the charter project. Huh?
Who? Mr. Bwangu?
Yes, Kamala.
Yes, pardon me.
Yes, I was saying that I have Tadala, Miss Tadala in the call from DWF. If she can have some time to expound on the charter project Africa, I think that could be very resourceful.
Okay, you was supposed to be in the keynote address that time. Yeah, so Mr. Tadala, if you can have your time is rushing, but if you can have your 3 minutes for the intervention on the keynote speech, but we wanted to know more on the Charter Project Africa and the GI. You're most welcome. And if you have the question, please just prepare your question. I give you some time to ask your question, and we'll go back to the speakers. If they have the question, then we'll call it a day. Now I should welcome Mr. Tadala, please.
Thank you so much, Kamala.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, definitely.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me this one? Oh, perfect. Thank you. My apologies for joining late. I got the time zones mixed up. But just to briefly introduce myself, I work with Democracy West Foundation. We're a Southern African non-profit organization focused on democracy development in the Southern Africa region. We are part of the Charter Project Africa, which is a Pan-African project that focuses on the commitments contained in the Africa Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. The project seeks to promote the use of civic technology to amplify citizens' voices, and we do so by providing grants as well as technical resources to civil society to implement civic initiatives aimed at promoting democracy and governance. And particularly we target civil society that are led by young people or underrepresented groups. So as Democracy Works Foundation, we are implementing this project in the SADC region. We work in 4 countries, including Tanzania, Botswana, Zambia, and South Africa. But the project as a whole is implemented in 11 countries across the continent. As I mentioned, I joined a bit late, but just to comment on the presentations that I had, I think I've heard a lot of similarities. On the and from where I've also been working in other countries like Botswana, South Africa, Lesotho. You see that the issues are common. The youth do not have the space to meaningfully participate in democratic processes. So just to commend Action for Democratic Governance for organizing such a platform where we, the youth in the continent, in the region, can come together, speak about these issues, and also just try to come up with a collective voice on how we can meaningfully advocate for our spaces to participate and engage in these electoral processes. And I'm hoping that through this regional dialogue, the action points, the recommendations that are coming out will be taken up by all of us within our respective spaces to see where we can push and lobby for this meaningful engagement for youth to actively and meaningfully participate and contribute to the democratic agenda in our respective countries and the continent as a whole. So thank you, A4DG, for organizing this. And also just to highlight that as the Charter Project Africa, we have quite a number of resources under the project that you can make use of, just increase your knowledge around these things to do with democracy, governance, and to also participate in consultations and engagements with policy actors. Our goal as a project is also to link up civil society with policymakers like the African Union, at the regional level, the SADC, and different organs of the AU. And I'm happy to see that ECOSOC is also part of the core, which is a good move. And I'm hoping that through this, there will be also further coordination and engagement with the goal of advancing its participation in democratic governance. So once again, thank you, ECODG, for organizing this. And I'm looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this kind of engagement and continued collaboration among the different participants that are on the call. I'm going to just paste a link in the chat for you to access the Charter website, the Charter project website, and there you're going to find the different resources. Apart from the online consultation platform, we also have a massive open online classroom where, like I mentioned, you can access the different resources just to enhance your knowledge on this topic. So thank you once again, and over to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Tadala, for the actually we are I think most of the young people here who are in the room, when they hear about the funding, because we have a lot of initiatives that they need some support. For example, here in Tanzania, we are getting to general election next year, and this year we have the local government election, and I think we'll need more to see if we are engaging young people in various aspects. So we'll reach out for any support or consultative. Thank you so much. So now,
so sorry, Kamala, just to interrupt. On the website that I've shared, you'll find a link that is also going to take you to opportunities. So there are different kind of opportunities that are posted there that you can make use of as civil society organizations and maybe get funding also.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's a great one. Asante sana. So now let me allow, this is Oscar. Yeah, Oscar Mitande. You're most welcome. So please make your question short so that you can have, and if you can direct your question to a speaker. Please.
Okay. Thanks so much. Yes, my name is Oscar Mitande from Democracy Work Foundation. Actually, my questions go direct to Mr. Willard Freedom. He was already mentioning the problems or challenges which actually young people are facing, which are actually they are preventing them from participating in this electoral process. So my question is, are you as an institute or organization who actually advocating and pioneering youth to participate in politics, especially in the electoral process? Maybe what kind of measures are you applied so far in one way or another way to make sure that youngs are effectively participated in each segment of politics?
So we go back to Willard. Do we have any person who has a question? Maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions. No. Okay. Willard, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And as you've mentioned, as you've asked, whether from the institution point of view as ActionAid, whether we're doing something about it. Yes, there are 2 initiatives that we've been doing as an organization, just to make sure that we are promoting young people's participation in the electoral processes. The first one is we've run a campaign called the 50-50 campaign. This is a campaign where we wanted to make sure that when we talk about the participation of women is 50-50, and also participation of young people, that should be 50-50. And in that kind of initiative, we've promoted the previous, that's in the previous election, and we are yet to repeat that in the upcoming election in 2025. Just to make sure that we are providing training, the capacity development to young people that are willing to contest. And over the years, we've also been engaging young people, just make sure that they come to realize their potentials and their rights, but also understanding the democratic processes. And through the global platform, which is a capacity development center within Action, we've also brought together young people from different walks of life, especially those that are also already in different groups and youth clubs, to give them a training on understanding the political landscape, the democratic spaces, and also the policies that are being utilized at different levels. And we've given some training, but also even where possible, startup materials that young people could use, I think, for them to prepare for running into different spaces. Currently, using the global platform itself as well, we've partnered with other like-minded organization. There is Youth and Society that is running also a Youth Decide campaign. And using those kind of campaigns, we've also developed the Youth Manifesto. And the Youth Manifesto, previously, we took it to different political parties just to make sure that they endorse it and put it into their manifestos as political parties to be utilized in outlining their political agenda. I think those at the institution level, those are the things that we've done. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you too.
Thank you so much, Willard. And I think now, yeah, like it was, I hope like everyone who has participated in the conversation has learned from other countries on how actually they are promoting the youth and women participation, but also the nature of the operation, the environment of operation when it comes to election and when it comes to democratic election. And I think we need to keep encouraging each other, young people from SADC region, because it won't be darkness every it won't be dark so long. Sometime you who are in this platform tomorrow, you might be on a certain position in the leadership. So try, if you get into power, try to remember that you have a role to contribute to make sure that the other young people in the continent or in the region, they depend much on you, because we get this tendency when we are young people, or when you are an activist, or you are still in leadership, when you get into government, you've been swallowed by the principles and you get into comfort because you already having the resources and everything, the money, and you forget that you had a role to contribute in the community. So I think we could keep the momentum and let's keep the conversation to each other. We connect on social media. We make sure that we are connected and we keep the conversation. Otherwise, I would like to thank you so much, Arusa Continua. Yeah, and now I would like to welcome Mr. Makwita. I don't know, Makwita is the one who is going to give us the closing remarks, or is Bwango? But from the Secretariat, please, you are welcome.
Makwita? Hello? Makwita?
Okay, thank you. I hear you, Yusuf. Thank you very much, Kamala, for moderation. and thank you everyone for participating. But I'll send my special remarks to my comrades, Kenneth Maboso, my friend Freedom, Beku Musa, my sister Narishebo, but also our partner, Ms. Tadara, for being here. You guys have, I think, what can I say to you? Because it was like, hey, Beku Musa, can you join us? And no hesitation. I see the way you guys, you are little comrades in issues related to young people, issues related to governance and democracy. I remember Beku Musa was saying that we are together on trenches fighting for good governance in our continent. So I like that, and I like this spirit, and you know, we are all sad. We have a lot of things to engage. I think this is not the last one. We will call you again, and I hope you will not let us down. I think we'll continue engaging and have a conversation like this one in the coming days. So all the participants who are joining here also, thank you so much from different countries and those who are from here, from Tanzania. Thank you so much for your resilience and tolerance, because it was like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, but almost now 2 hours, and you guys were still here. I think this is very great. So for that, I have I don't have anything to add more. It's just to say thank you for participating, and we are looking forward to have the next engagement, and we will inform you guys when we will organize another meeting. So I think Yusuf, do you have any announcement, or we can close our meeting?
No, I think you have it all. Yes, I think you have it all.
Okay. So for that, I can say that don't close our meeting, because we still have more meeting on the coming days. So we just end up here. So you guys, see you next time when we call another meeting like this one. Thank you.
Luta continua.
Yeah.
Ante, bye.